tell ourselves that we fear the unknown. But in reality, what we truly fear is what we might discover about ourselves once we stop hiding behind what's familiar. The scariest part about stepping outside of your comfort zone isn't the actual experience, it's the anticipation of it. Once you've tasted the thrill of the unknown, choosing comfort becomes very unnatural to you. Fear, in fact, is wisdom in the face of danger. So when your survival or your dream depends on your risk-taking ability, being risk-averse, that's not an option anymore. Confidence does not come from success. Confidence comes from knowing the fact that the last time you felt that everything was over, that this was it, you still survived. Success is a very uncomfortable pursuit. So you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable if you ever want to be successful. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're tuned into SOOD IT OUT. I'm your host Achintya Sood, and this is episode 2 of our new mini-series, Fear Unlocked, where we talk about the 4 fears that stop us from stepping into the unknown. In the first episode, we talked about the fear of judgment, and in case you haven't watched that episode yet, you can find the link right here. But today, we're talking about the comfort zone trap and how to embrace change rather than fearing it. I'm sure all of you have heard this 100 times before. People saying that, beta, just step outside your comfort zone. It's all magic out here. You'll grow, you'll evolve, you'll turn into a better human being. You see, people tend to make it out to be very simple, like it's a very simple secret recipe for success. But in reality, no matter how prepared you are, stepping outside your comfort zone always feels intimidating. Whether it's starting a new job, starting college, going to a new city, or moving to a new country altogether, the fear is real. And why won't it be? You see, throughout our lives, we're surrounded by the same people, the same environments, just a very comforting sense of familiarity. And suddenly we're expected to trade all of that away for something that is unfamiliar and uncertain. Of course, it's going to feel intimidating. Of course, it's going to feel overwhelming. But that is why it's all worth it. Now let me put some weight behind my words and let me tell you a story. See, the first time I was supposed to go to Mumbai for college, I was shit scared. Because having spent the last 8 years in a boarding school, I had completely forgotten what it felt like to go to a place where I knew nobody. And to make things worse, I had made no effort to talk to anybody during online lectures. Because I was just trying to avoid that discomfort of meeting new people. But with the flights booked, I had to face it. I had to step into the unknown. And a couple of days before my flight, I was intimidated. I was anxious. I was scared because the thought of walking into a classroom full of people who knew each other, where I only knew a couple of people, that was nerve-wracking. But as I was leaving my house for the airport, the funniest thing happened. I got an email from college saying that due to a rise in COVID cases in Mumbai, they were going to continue with the hybrid mode of teaching for the next 1 month. That meant that you could either stay at home for another month and attend online lectures, or you could come to Mumbai and attend physical lectures. And as soon as I told my dad, while we were sitting in the car, he smoked and he said that, "Bata fir, bolu main driver ko gaadi ghumane wo." And suddenly I was faced with this choice. I had 15 minutes to make a decision, and I could either delay stepping outside my comfort zone for another month, or I could just say fuck it and go through with it. And the reason I say delay instead of avoid is that every time we don't take that decision to do something uncomfortable, we're only delaying it. We're only pushing it further down the road. We can't actually escape it. Because make no mistake, it will catch up with you. And one day you will have to face that discomfort. So the advice that I will give you is that do it as soon as you can. Because once you actually step into the unknown, once you actually do something uncomfortable, you realize that it was never as scary as you thought it would be. The scariest part about stepping outside of your comfort zone isn't the actual experience, it's the anticipation of it. Studies in neuroscience show that our brains tend to exaggerate threats and fears when faced with uncertainty. But once you actually take that first action, once you take that first step, your brain quickly recalibrates. Think about the last time you tried something new, whether it was starting a new job, first day at a new gym, or even speaking in public for the first time. The build-up was terrifying, but once you actually went ahead with it, you realized that it wasn't half as bad as you thought it would be. And I know this because I will never forget that first flight to Mumbai. Sitting between two uncles, at 7:30 a.m. eating airplane pranthas, not even knowing the address to the PG I was supposed to go to once I land. I was shit scared यार, फटी पड़ी थी मेरी. और मेरी सबसे ज़्यादा इस चीज़ से फटी पड़ी थी कि यार नए दोस्त बनाने पड़ेंगे. It had been ages since I had made any new friends and I was despising it. But here's the funny thing about life, and I touched on this in the last episode as well. You see, the world will surprise you, but only if you give it a chance to surprise you. You see, all of my anxiety, all of my overthinking, all of my fear about not having anybody to talk to, not knowing anybody, they didn't even last till I made it inside the college gates. क्योंकि जैसे ही मैं ऑटो से बाहर निकला ना, I saw a friend waving at me कि अचिंत्य भाई आ जाओ, तुम्हारी वेट कर रहा था मैं. जैसे ही मैं क्लास के बाहर पहुंचा, another friend was waving at me saying कि भाई तेरे लिए सीट रखी हुई है मैंने. So all of those things that had been troubling me for the past couple of days, all of those fears, they didn't even last till I had the opportunity to look around the classroom for the first time. And I'm sure this is not just me. I'm sure all of you have had a similar experience in your life. We build these worst case scenarios in our heads, stories that actually never play out in real life. We stress ourselves by thinking about all the possible scenarios when in reality 90% of our fears never actually happen. So the next time you find yourself lost in your own thoughts, overthinking every possible scenario, just remind yourself that the scariest part is always before you begin. And the craziest part is that if you actually embrace change, if you step outside of your comfort zone in time instead of delaying it, the next time you have to do that, it does not feel as scary anymore. And I know this because when I was sitting on my first flight to Milan, I thought back to that first flight to Mumbai. And yeah, by all logic, I should have been more terrified, right? Because Mumbai was still the same country. Similar people, similar culture, similar food. It was still familiar. But this was a whole new continent. A completely different language, people, culture and food. So by all logic, I should have felt more overwhelmed, more anxious, more scared. But I didn't. और यार जब मैं ये लिख रहा था ना ये एपिसोड, आई वॉज ट्राइंग टू थिंक बैक टू दैट फर्स्ट फ्लाइट टू मिलान, क्योंकि मैं सोच रहा था यार कि कैसे हो सकता है ये, हाउ वॉज आई नॉट दैट स्कैर्ड, बिकॉज आई कैन स्टिल taste the anxiety I had on that first flight to Mumbai. But when I think about that first flight to Milan, I don't remember anything. No fear, no anxiety, just a quiet sense of readiness. The truth is that every time you conquer a fear, you expand your horizons. Each step that you take outside of your comfort zone makes you realize that the unknown is not something to be scared of. Instead, it's an opportunity for growth, transformation, and unexpected joy. So the next time you feel a tug of doubt, embrace it and believe that on the other side of fear lies a version of yourself you have not yet discovered. A self that is resilient, courageous and capable of greatness. And I know this might sound a little patronizing, कि just take that first step and it's all roses from there on. When in reality it is okay to feel scared and intimidated, because it's not just you and me. You see, the tendency to avoid stepping into the unknown is deeply rooted into human psychology and behavior. It's a concept called the status quo theory, a principle in psychology that explains why individuals, organizations, and even entire societies have a natural preference of maintaining their current state, their current status quo. You see, our brains tend to overestimate the risks associated with stepping outside of our comfort zone, and they underestimate the benefits that we might derive from them. Our brain convinces us that staying the same is safer, when in reality, staying the same is killing our true potential. Comfort is a trap disguised as stability, and we accept it. Not because we're content, but because we're scared of what might happen when we step into the unknown. You see, in reality, staying the same isn't safe. It just guarantees that you will stay stuck forever. I remember my professor for entrepreneurship and history telling us in class that Denmark has a large number of startups that are valued at 200, 300, even 400 million dollars, but they're really struggling to have any unicorns. Unicorns are startups that are valued at over $1 billion. And he conducted his research on the topic and he came to the conclusion that one of the reasons for this is Denmark's robust healthcare and social security system. He says that entrepreneurs there have a safety net. They know that if things don't work out, they still have something to fall back on. They'll have unemployment benefits, they'll have free healthcare, they'll have access to housing. So that reduces their risk-taking ability, which has resulted in Denmark only having 3 unicorns. And if you contrast that with India, where we have about 120 unicorns, you see, of course, one of the reasons is we have a very large population. But another reason is that in India, entrepreneurship is either driven by need or by massive wealth aspirations. So when your survival or your dream depends on your risk-taking ability, staying the same, being risk-averse, and not taking that leap, that's not an option anymore. Because that means that you've embraced failure even before you had the opportunity to see what you were truly capable of. And here's the thing about stepping beyond what's familiar. You see, it's not a straight path. Some transitions might feel natural, seamless, like second nature, but some might push you to your absolute limits. For me, Mumbai felt seamless, natural. But Milan was a completely different experience. So much so that 4 months later, when I was back home in India, I found myself sitting in my room and thinking कि भाई अब ये वापस जाने की motivation कहाँ से आने वाली है यार? Because after the last 2 months that I had in Milan, the prospect of an uneventful, boring life in Shimla at home felt very enticing. And for the first couple of days, I let myself soak it all in. The familiarity of home was a welcome relief. I wandered through the streets of Shimla with my parents and I took it all in, the predictability, the stillness. And I thought to myself, bro, this isn't half bad. But 2 weeks later, I realized कि भाई ऐसे नहीं हो पाएगा. If I had to become the version of myself 14-year-old Achintya had envisioned, I had to keep making the uncomfortable choices. I had to embrace discomfort. The thing is that living at home meant convenience. Food ready at hand, clothes washed without lifting a finger, and a room that was always clean. But after years of tackling through challenges, of choosing the uncertain path time and time again, choosing comfort now felt like I was throwing all that I had worked so hard for away. And I'm sure this will happen with all of you as well. Once you've tasted the thrill of the unknown, once you know what it feels like to repeatedly step outside of your comfort zone, choosing comfort becomes very unnatural to you. So even if the next time you're at rock bottom, 6 months into burnout or heartbreak, you still find a way to keep going. Because you look yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself that, bro, I have not come this far only to come this far. अगर मेरे को छोड़ना ही था तो मैं कभी शुरू ही ना करता. Think of it like climbing a mountain. The higher you go, the more exhausted you become. But turning back and not reaching the peak is not an option. Not because you physically can't, but because your mind won't let you turn back. Once you started, your ego, your self-respect won't let you turn back until you've either conquered the peak or you've given it your best shot. So even in life, if you fail after having given it your best shot, that is still okay. But if you never start, if you never step out because your comfort zone felt safer, that's not just failure, that's self-sabotage. And Steve Harvey put it best, and I quote, "Your comfort zone is where you will fail. Success is not a comfortable procedure, it's a very uncomfortable pursuit. So you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable if you ever want to be successful in life." And how do I know this to be true? Because I've lived it. You see, just before I was supposed to come back to Milan, my dad, he came and he sat me down and he told me that, don't feel the obligation to go back just because you decided to leave in the first place. If you don't like it there, it's okay, we'll figure something out. But by then I had already made up my mind. I told him कि यार पापा, शिमला में रहते रहते तो नहीं आने वाली Ferrari, तो जाना तो पड़ेगा. And it's been 3 months now since I've been back. And I can tell you one thing with certainty, I could not have been happier with my decision. See, I'll not lie to you, it's not all sunshine and roses all the time. There are times when I do doubt myself and when I am not having the best of times. But yeah, over the past 3 months, I have realized one thing, that all of that discomfort in the first 4 months, it was never the city, it was never the people, it was never Milan itself. It was something happening far away. It was something that I had absolutely no control over. The discomfort was never real. It was all in my head. And that's the truth about fear. You see, fear is like a locked door inside your mind. You stand there staring at it, thinking it is impenetrable. You waste days, weeks, months, even years thinking that you can't make it through that door. But the moment you push at it, you realize that it was never locked to begin with. So stop waiting, stop overthinking, stop creating imaginary barriers, and just push the damn door open. Because confidence does not come from success. Confidence comes from knowing the fact that the last time you felt that everything was over, that this was it, you still survived. And now that you face adversity again, telling yourself कि अगर पिछली बार कुछ नहीं हुआ था तो इस बार क्या ही हो जाएगा. And fear is nothing to be ashamed of. Fear, in fact, is wisdom in the face of danger. And confidence does not come from never feeling fear. It comes from knowing that every time that you felt fear, every curveball life has thrown at you, you still survived. It comes from knowing the fact that the fear you feel today is nothing compared to the hurdles you've already overcome in your life. So the next time you feel the fear, the next time you find yourself in a tough situation, remind yourself that I've already overcome my toughest challenges and I will overcome this as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Embracing Change by SOOD IT OUT. I'm your host Achintya Sood. And if you liked today's deep dive, please subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments and share this video with anybody you feel who needs to hear this. And of course, remember to take a deep breath, sit with it, think about it, and keep moving forward. And of course, keep listening to SOOD IT OUT. I'll see you in the next one.